Mr. Chad Weber with Meyer, Lynch. He's a system engineer. Is based in Maumee, Ohio. Chad's education includes ITT Technical Institute with honors distinction. He has over 8 years experience in the information technology field. His credentials include VMware, VCP5, including data center virtualization, capacity planning, Microsoft Certified Technology Specialist, Dell Ecologic Technical Engineer, Competent Top Gun Storage Architect, and Fusion IO Control Implementation Specialist. Chad has in-depth experience with VMware and Hyper-V virtualization, Citrix, Microsoft Exchange, Veeam, Aperture, SAN storage, backup and disaster recovery, and expertise in Microsoft Server Solutions. He has been in the IT consulting field for several years and worked with companies in Northwest Ohio, including Findlay, Lima, and Toledo. Prior to that, he was an IT specialist supporting a significant server environment for a fast-growing company in Northwest Ohio.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, we'll let you get started.
As Nick said, my name is Chad Weber. I'm with Meyer, Lynch. I'd like to welcome everybody today, and thank you for sitting in this session with me. Before I get started, I'm an engineer, not a public speaker, so you'll have to excuse anything. I'll try not to be boring, but I can't make any promises. And I'm also just quit smoking 3 days ago, so if I seem a little jittery, you'll know about it. It was hard enough without that. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to do a quick show of hands here. Who likes our current backup process? Nobody, half a guy. Who would like to move to the cloud, or is thinking about moving to the cloud? Got a couple of people here. I mean, I assume that's why most of us are here. But who's worried that the cloud is not ready for their business? It's not enterprise ready. They're not going to be able to. It's not going to be able to handle what they need. A few more people, lots more people. Is anyone here currently in the cloud? Awesome. Your entire environment, or just certain things?
Entire.
Okay. Awesome. So, moving forward, you have a lot of people asking, why don't we just move to the cloud? It's a question our management is asking us, our C-levels. Let's just move there. We don't need to keep buying things. What does that really mean? I'm not very funny, so I try to use Dilbert to be funny for me. Moving forward, we're going to talk about what traditional backups are. We're going to talk about moving into the cloud, planning, and the kinds of cloud solutions that are offered out there. And then we're going to talk about some other considerations. Kind of a brief overview for the next 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our traditional backups. We're going to review. This is our de facto traditional backup and recovery process. When you think backup solution, your tape backups, and this is, this method here is to backup and recovery is, Kleenexes to facial tissue. It's what you think of. You back it up, you take it off site, you keep it there for a while. When you need it, you bring it back and you restore it. So it's a quick overview there. Everyone's familiar with that. There's a guy, I'm sure a couple of us probably still have tape drives that are that old somewhere in our environments. Traditional, we'll break it down even further. We have three different sections, right? We have our direct to tape. So we take all of our stuff and we dump it to tape or some other external media. We have our back it up to disk, then move it to tape. So we keep a local site or a local copy, and then the tape goes off site. Iron Mountain, whoever, a bank vault, someone's basement. And then we have another solution which has been leveraged, which is our, it starts touching on a private cloud. It's not perfect, and I'll get into it in a little bit in this iteration, but we back it up to disk, and then we take that disk and we replicate it to another disk within our environment, something that we typically own. The idea is good, the execution hasn't always been awesome. So, going through, I'm just going to do a brief overview again of the Local to tape, we have software costs with our backup software, backup exec, pick your solution. Generally running our jobs every night. We only run it once a night typically. We'll do a full at the end of the week, and then we'll do incremental nightlies. We're not getting full copy, or we're not getting frequent copies of our data. Or someone creates a file at 10, going back and being able to restore that file at 3 is generally not something we're achieving with this method. Tape drives always need to be sized. As your data continues to grow, your older tape drives end up going out of style, and you got to buy something bigger. You got to buy LTOs 5, 6, or 8 whenever it comes out. Test restores are often difficult as well. We don't have the time, we don't have the money, and it becomes an afterthought. It's one of those things we don't think about until we actually need it. Then we throw our tape in, and we say, oops, that tape was actually corrupted about 6 months ago. None of that data has been good, and we are not in a good place at that time. We've got a lot of angry eyes and heated breaths on our neck. Software, you have your maintenance on your software, you have your maintenance on your agents, so you've got your associated costs there. And disaster recovery, for a full disaster recovery, you have your environment, the heaven forbid, burns down, floods. Restoring that data from tape, provided all your tapes are good, is still going to take you days or weeks, depending on what you need to restore. Adding the local disk makes the solution pretty much the same. The benefit that you get from that is that you're going to keep you're going to be able to do local restores a little bit more quicker, a little bit more quickly, and so you've got a little bit of padding there, and then you can also you have your verification, and some test file restores are definitely easier. So this entry-level private cloud solution where we back up to disk and then replicate to a disk somewhere else in our environment. The problem with this method, the way it exists for a lot of us, and when you're using something like backup exec, or a number of other programs that are designed to run on tape, is that these programs were designed to back up to tape. They're designed to back up at the file level. They are not designed to, they weren't built from the ground up to be able to take your data across the cloud and keep it out there and make the most effective use of your bandwidth, your restore times. They take it, and it was an afterthought for them. People want this, so let's give it to them. And it's just not effective. It doesn't work very well. And you take your 36-hour backup to disk job, and then you take another 50 hours replicating it to your DR site that you have 50 minutes away, and it's just not effective. 50 hours for replication, you may as well not be doing it. This is a good model, though, in that it leverages a private cloud. With the correct solution, this becomes viable, and we'll get into that. So back to our cloud. After reviewing traditional, what can the cloud do for you? How can you leverage the cloud to make your backups more efficient and truly give yourself a disaster recovery type environment? Just move it to the cloud. Again, our management is saying it to us. What does that mean? It's important to understand that there are multiple different cloud types. Okay, this guy's just going to move it all to the cloud. But a number of people say, we just move it to the cloud, and I say, how do you want to do that? I don't know. They think it's as easy as opening up their phone or a Google Drive and copying it over. Not quite that easy. So, our three different cloud types, primary cloud types, are private cloud. Private cloud is actually our cloud. That is your cloud within your environment. You have a site here, in Lima or wherever your office is, and you have another site, Bluffton, Findlay, Toledo, across the country. Those sites might be connected with a point-to-point VPN. You might have a T1 or a Metro link between them. That is a private cloud. You can leverage that as a private cloud. It's your environment. You own it. Public is taking it across the internet to someone that owns their equipment. You don't own their stuff. You take it to a third-party service that provides services to other people. They'll provide service to me, to you, to anyone that's going to pay them money. Now, hybrid is a really good concept, and it's one that's taken off a lot lately. It's leveraging your internal network, your devices, and then so you have a copy, and then taking it and moving it to a third party as well. This gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of options, and we'll get into why that can be real good for you. So we're going to go over some benefits of the cloud here. Scalable. How many of your backup solutions today are real scalable? If you wanted to, you could just add more storage, more walk in today, make it back up faster, make it back up more efficiently without overhauling your entire system. You can, because you use the cloud. For the rest of us that aren't using that, overhauling that and scaling it to what we need is a huge, daunting task. Infrastructure management, when we have it in the cloud, it's their problem. In a public cloud at least, or a hybrid cloud, when we are paying someone else to host our stuff, that's no longer your concern. It's your concern. It's no longer your problem. When the hard drive fails, they have to fix that. That's going to be something that you want to talk about with your vendor, who's responsible for that. But replication between sites. Take it between your site and a site you own, your site and their site. It allows you to get that replication without that factor of human error, that tape drive failing, or the guy that's supposed to swap the tape every morning, or swap the set of tapes every Friday evening, and you call him up on Monday, he's like, man, I completely forgot to do that, I'm sorry, and well, we need to restore it. Yeah, about that. Your human error is eliminated quite a bit here. Geographically disperse. This is an interesting one as well. Keeping your cloud too close to each other. If you had a large tornado like one that came through last year in Oklahoma, any businesses that were real close together, if they were hoping for their next door tape stuff to be good, they probably were disappointed. So the ability to keep things isolated for weather and stuff is a huge benefit. Your operating costs are, this will go both ways. I'm going to talk about here's the benefit. A lot of companies find it really easy to be able to just pay continuously. It's easier to say, I'm going to pay you X number of dollars a month than to go to management and say, hey, can I have $100,000 to put a new backup solution in place? And they're saying, yeah, right, next year. It's easier to swallow for them when you present a number that's much more swallowable. And then your forklift upgrades, going back and asking for that $100,000 again in 6 years when you say, hey, I know we just did this, it seems like yesterday, but we need to replace everything because it's not going to handle the new stuff we just put in. With cloud, we can really tailor that and add additional packages or do different things that can kind of help us eliminate that forklift mentality. And then the elimination of removable media in most cases is a huge benefit. Again, the human error factor. Get rid of it. Now let's talk about challenges. Cloud isn't perfect, right? It's got its own set of challenges and own set of things that you need to consider. The dependency on the internet is one. Your bandwidth will need to be adjusted. It'll need to be tweaked to handle the additional load that you're going to put on it for your cloud backups. Latency can be an issue. You get a bunch of help desk calls saying, hey, I can't visit my favorite eBay site, and you don't really care, but someone does care because you are saturating the line. And then internet downtime. You need a file that you need to restore. You have someone important that is asking for a file, or end user, doesn't matter. Everyone wants their stuff, and when you tell them you can't get it because your internet's down, and the only place that it exists is up in the cloud, they're going to have some choice words for you, and it might not be friendly. Location. Where is another challenge? Where is it? Do you want driving distance and it might be a lot cheaper to store the data in some really cheap cloud storage over in India, which might work for you. It might not be acceptable when someone says, hey, we need all that here tomorrow, and you're saying that that's not going to happen. Another challenge that you'll encompass is encounter is the loss of control with your site. you don't have to worry about replacing the power supply that died, the hard drive that died, but you are responsible for making sure that your backup is still there. And when you're encountering latency issues or problems in your cloud site, and you call up your vendor and say, hey, this isn't working right, you can generally work that out with your vendor, but when management comes to you and says, hey, this isn't working right, it's still your problem. You know, it's not something that you can say, well, it's in the cloud. You know, no, not my problem anymore. And it still stays with you. Vendor issues can be another challenge. Finding one that will work for you, finding one that meets your needs, your budgets, and then there's also, you have a disagreement with your vendor on how a restore should be done or how something should come in. You know, finding the vendor that you're comfortable with that will work with you to get this done in the most effective fashion is another challenge you'll come across. And then cost. I mentioned cost as a benefit, but cost can also be a challenge because you break the cost out over 3 to 5 years, you will see it may be more expensive to you leverage the cloud, right? If you pay for everything up front, it's yours, you own it. Yes, sir?
What about vendor changes?
I will discuss that. We will absolutely get into that. Vendor changes definitely becomes a challenge when you start talking about what format do they keep it in. Are they going to give it to you? How long do they hold your data?
You have vendor issues. If you have an issue with a vendor, you have to represent you.
Correct. And that's going to be something that I will just touch on in a little bit, and something that you'll definitely want to consider and plan out and work out with your vendor on how you get that information. As for cost, you know, you might take that 3 to 5 years and you'll budget it out and you'll say, okay, well, we're a little bit more expensive, but the convenience is really nice of having our data out in the cloud. We're willing to spend that extra money to do it. And then you need to restore a file and you get hit with a charge. And you're saying, what's this for? Well, within the contract here, and I'm not sure if you read it, but you only get X number of restores per year, or a full file server restore based on, you know, the size. A terabyte of data you restored, and you're sitting there with a bill for $3,000. That can be an issue. So being aware of the costs associated with different things. Now, you are getting rid of your tape. You don't have to refresh your tapes. Maybe that can help ease into that. It's not necessarily more. It's just a challenge that you have to look at, something you have to think about. So I know we touched on some of these. These are the considerations. This is the high-level overview of every consideration that you need to look into. You know, you need to consider, answer, and review before you make your plan to move to the cloud. Starting, you know, we're gonna go through each one in a little bit of detail. I'm gonna try to keep it moving here because there's a lot of information. Going to backup software. Backup software is still required for cloud. I mean, you're not just going to take a copy of your files through Windows Copy and move it to the cloud. And you're not going to go to a cloud vendor, you know, who's going to say, hey, let's sell you some cloud storage. And you're going to say, okay, well, I copied them up there. Now I have a cloud backup solution. It doesn't work like that. You're going to need the cloud storage, and you're going to need the software solution, and you're going to need the software solution to exist on both sides to manage that data, manage that historical data, the archive data, the disaster recovery portion, and you're going to need to find one that works for you that meets your needs. So it's something that you want to find out, you know, what's your vendor using, you know, is it, and how does it meet the list of goals that you've laid out. Now, bandwidth and throttling. I can speak to this one on experience. This is an often overlooked piece. Bandwidth is easier to think about. You think about, well, I'm going to be pulling these files in or sending them up. I need my upload to be able to handle the data that I'm sending out to the cloud. I need my download to be able to handle the data that I'm retrieving from it or restoring from in the event that I'm doing that. Throttling. When you are replicating that data out at 9 o'clock in the morning and everyone's trying to log in and no one's logging in because you have saturated your entire network due to replication, you start to think about throttling. I have seen this. I am guilty of actually doing this. Shame on me. Set up a solution, didn't throttle it. I had a number of angry users who were saying, yeah, I can't access anything. You definitely want to figure out how you're going to handle that throttling aspect so that you can do a certain amount of replication during the day and then maybe let it go full bore at night. So, retention. Retention is, you have retention now, right? currently, we generally see people are keeping data, between a week to a month. Depending on the organization, they'll be keeping it for 3 months, quarterly, a year. Is anyone keeping data longer than a year right now? A couple people. Is anyone making sure that they don't have any more than 30 days? Depends on the industry, I've noticed. Generally 30 days is much lower than I like to see. But with the cloud, we still have to think about retention and how much we want to keep, how long we want to be able to go back. And there's still a cost associated with that. The cost now isn't the tape. The cost is how much storage we're going to use in the cloud. And this can actually be mitigated quite a bit through some roll-ups and stuff. You have an image out there. Well, you just keep another copy of that image. And depending on the technology, they may be able to do it much easier and more quickly than your traditional method. And then there's also the do I still need a tape backup? I've got this data here. I've got it in the cloud, so I've got 2 copies of it. I might even have a tertiary cloud, a third place. Do I still need a physical tape? Do you want that tape? Is that going to be important to your environment, your management, and the people who are making the decisions to sign this check to put this solution in place? You're going to need to ask that question as well. Where is my data? Got a guy sitting here saying that his cloud is passing over Peru. Sounds hilarious, right? That's haha. But it becomes a real serious question when someone says, you need to restore that data. Where is that? Can we go get that? No, we can't. We can't because we put it someplace else, or maybe yes, we can. Think about where your data is going to go, and we're going to talk about why it's going to be important. If it's a site you own, you're going to know where it's at. So that's a private cloud. If it's going to be a public cloud, knowing where the vendor is hosting your data or keeping a copy of it is going to be important for a handful of things. Your base replication time, let me, well, I'll get there in a second, actually. Show of hands, your preference for cloud, would it be close to you? I've got a few different options. Close, if you want it next door within 10 minutes, raise your hand. If you want it within driving distance, it's another option. Or if you don't know. Okay, that's okay. I didn't know the answer to this one either until I started getting into it. And there's these items here will help you answer this question. How long is it going to take you to move your bulk of data to the cloud? Do you need to be concerned about weather patterns? And do you need to be able to access your data by car, if possible, or be able to go and pick a copy up, or have your vendor bring a copy down? It's an important thing to think about here. So, migrating to the cloud. Discussing this is, well, it's not moved by balloons and magic. You can't just send your data up to the cloud, obviously. So thinking about how you're going to move that much data is it's an important consideration. How many of you have more than a terabyte of data you back up regularly? Most of you, right? A terabyte is not that much anymore. On a 10 meg connection, or on an internet connection that has 10 meg up, which is reasonable for some, and some that you might have 5, you might have 2, depending on where you're at. If you're more rural, at 10 meg up, you can expect to get roughly 90 gig to the cloud a day. At a terabyte, you're looking at some time before you get that base up there, and then you have to start sending your changes and your replication data. If you're backing up 2 terabytes, 5 terabytes, 10 terabytes of data, this question becomes significantly more important. How do you get that data there at first? This can be a very, very big project, or it will be a very big project. It says can, it will be. And you should expect bumps as you're migrating 10 terabytes of data, or 5 terabytes. It doesn't really matter. You will have bumps. You will need to plan time to remediate these issues that you come across as you take your initial set of your initial copy of data out to the cloud. There's also a cost associated with this. That cost is either your technical support helping get that data out, your vendor coming out to move that data for you, or the cost associated with just the increased bandwidth. Contacting your ISP and saying, hey, we need you to bump us up to 100 for the time being. They're going to say, yeah, right. There's going to be a cost with that initial migration. It's something you need to plan for, you need to think about, you need to document and take to your management and say, in addition to everything we're spending here, there's going to be a one-time $15,000 bill to move this, depending on what you're moving. That's just a random number. Please don't quote me on that. The method and time required is important as well. So we can seed data. What that's going to do is, seeding it is the term we take for, we copy it to a server or some other device, and then we take it to the cloud, and it's moved there. It allows us to not have to take terabytes of data across a 10 megabits per second line out to the internet. It allows us to do that initial transfer much more quickly. However, it's still going to take, it'll likely take days, depending on the amount of data you have, and you need to be able to make accommodations for your backups while that seeding process is happening. During that seeding process, some softwares, they won't run until the seed is complete. So, if you're sending data up to the cloud at 10 and you can't get a backup for a month, that's not going to work for you. But if you can do it and get it out for a week, a lot of times you can pick right back up after that week, get your data replicating again and be in a good spot. So this area right here is one of the areas that people don't do the cloud. They're afraid of it, and you shouldn't really be afraid of it if you know what to think about when you're doing it. They think about just moving that big chunk of data and what it means to them. So these are miscellaneous considerations. We went through a number of these other ones. There are the other things you're going to want to think about and answer for your organization and get answers from your management when you're planning the solution out are, what features do you guys need? Do you need encryption if you're replicating to a private cloud? Do you need encryption if you're replicating to a public cloud or a hybrid solution? How important is that to your organization? Do you need snapshots, a third or secondary, tertiary backup? Do you need, does it need to be managed by your provider? Are you going to manage it? Do you need technical support, or are you going to handle everything yourself? How many test recoveries do you get? Do you get test recoveries? What are those costs of those test recoveries for you? So features you need to think about, you need to find the ones that you need to have, that your management wants you to have in order to make the solution work. You will find that management plays a big part in, as always in our industry, telling you how to do your job. So it doesn't change here. Recovery time, recovery is another consideration. How long do you want it to take to recover a full server, to recover a file server, or 50 gig of data? What's an acceptable time frame to be able to do that? Do you need this solution to be able to be a full disaster recovery? If your building burns down, how are you going to be able to spin up this cloud solution into a active hot site for yourself? And then there's contractual terms for vendors, and much to what you were talking about, sir, is the term of your contract. How long are you tied into this? 1 year, 3 years. If you don't like it and you cancel, what happens? How much is that going to cost you? How do you get a copy of your data? How do you move that data? How do you bring your data back inside if you decide you don't want to do the cloud anymore? Those are all items that need to be discussed with your vendor. SLA, how often are they going to be up? You get this whole solution done and you find out that they're up Tuesdays and Thursdays between 9 and 10, and because you didn't read that fine print, that's going to be a problem for you. So figure out what they're going to offer you, what they're going to guarantee you as far as how you're going to maintain this. And we talked on termination there. Are there any questions as far as considerations and all the considerations we went through as far as planning and thinking about your solution as a whole, your cloud solution, or moving to the cloud? I'm going to come back and do another questions at the very end for this, but if there's any questions on the considerations, now's cool. If not, then we're going to move into the planning phase. So who in here has done a backup assessment recently? Audit assessment, making sure, a review to ensure that their backups are good. A handful. Less than I think we should see, right? I think it's an often overlooked area where we say, yep, it's working, and we don't test it. We don't make sure that it's good. With that, did you do a growth analysis? Did you see how much data you were using today, and what you were 6 months ago, a year ago, and think about what you're going to use 6 months from now, and a year from now, 2 years from now?
We do on a quarterly basis.
Quarterly basis, perfect.
We have to have growth.
So, does anyone else do storage analysis with their frequently or regularly? It's definitely going to be an item here that you're going to want to use in your planning piece. Did I skip one? No, I didn't. What happened to my? Oh, back. There we go. This is a high-level overview of our planning steps, and I just talked about the backup assessment. These are all important. The backup assessment is going to be really critically important. So I really want everyone to be thinking of that as we move forward with this conversation. Knowing what you're backing up, how often you're backing it up, how often you need to back it up, and how often you need to be able to restore that is going to answer a lot of your questions as you plan your solution out. So, talking about cloud backup solutions, we have a couple different kinds, right? We have subscription-based services, Carbonite, iDrive. Those are really good for your home offices. Your home users are going to be backing up handfuls of, some files off their PCs, maybe 10 gig, 20 gig. It runs off the software, it moves up there. It's phenomenal for that. But it's not really good for business, right? It's not going to be something that you're going to say, yep, well, I set my entire data center up through Carbonite. It's not going to work. So in order to get into a good business type model, you're going to be looking at like an MSP solution or a hybrid backup solution. These are something that you're going to either be able to manage entirely yourself, or you're going to do your hybrid wise, or Axiom, Aperture. These are the kinds of software programs you're going to see in this model. Lots of MSPs, managed solution providers, provide white labeled software. And they say, we'll come in and we will offer you a cloud-based backup, and generally they're running on a software backend, which it's fine. It's just their flavor. They're providing service. They're making sure that things are staying up and running, and that's the MSP model, if you will. And these can be configured for any size: small businesses, big businesses, and big businesses do use this. Customers that are tiny little mom and pop shops, all the way up through HP. The Fortune 100s use MSP type models. So choosing the right vendor. Choosing the right vendor is kind of tough, because how do you know who's going to be able to provide what they're saying they're providing? And when you call and you say, hey, we've had a disaster, and they say, well, we actually have no idea where your data center's at. So that's what we'll call a GRE, or a RGE, a resume generating event. You'll be looking for someplace else to work. Managed solutions. Finding the right managed solutions provider. Managed is a generic term. There is no, when you talk about managed solutions, pick some that you like. Pick some that are important to you. When you think about what is important to be managed, do you need monitoring, troubleshooting, preventative maintenance, or do you just need someone that you can call? Go through a checkbox, figure out the ones that you want to have, and then find the vendor that's going to provide those items to you. A lot of times you may want to just handle it yourself, and you just want some simple installation guidance, or maybe you want quarterly audits from someone. Managed solutions can be a lot of things. Don't let the term scare you. Disaster recovery goals. As you're sitting down and moving forward with your plan, disaster recovery goals are, again, important. who actually has a disaster recovery plan in place today? If you went to your office, you could pull up your disaster recovery document and say, this is what we do. About 6 people in here. Having a disaster recovery guide, or goals and document stating what your expectations are and your company's expectations are in the event of a disaster is really important. And it's something that should be done prior to migrating your solution to the cloud. Goals and, yeah, I don't really have to go through that, I'm sorry. Let me move forward here. So this slide, a lot of my slides have been really, really busy. This slide is not. This is a single question because it's an important question. And do you want to have true off-site DR capability? How many people have true off-site DR capability today? In the event, if their environment went down, they could be up and running quickly. Very, very few people. It's because generally DR, true disaster recovery, has been extremely expensive, and it's been the solution for people that had a lot of money and could afford it. With the cloud, it makes it. The options are much more affordable for companies that want to be able to leverage disaster recovery and want to be able to utilize their software to be able to come up in 24, 48 hours. Finding out what DR means to you and what you need to be able to do to leverage DR is something that you want to plan for. You want to think about. You need to clearly define those goals for yourself. Did I skip the page? Oh, I didn't. All right, we are so. A real-world example. I'm actually going to bring Matt Farrington up here right now. Matt knows this environment really well because he helped take care of it. So we're gonna explain it, or he's gonna explain it, and then I'll step back up. So
last year I did a project where I split 2 companies up, and the daughter company had to go on their own, start managing their own solution. They were faced with about 8 terabytes worth of data to back up, one of which was a 4 terabyte behemoth. When we got into it, we found that particular server took 125 hours for a single full backup, and incrementals were pretty much impossible. Aside from that, they had 45 other servers to cover the other 4 terabytes to back up within that same time frame. Typically, they would do a full on a weekend, which took about 36 hours. So if you start adding that up together, you can see that their recovery plan was basically a waste of time because the backup never finished. So they obviously needed help, and we started to get into a replication and DR solution ourselves, and we offered up a POC, which included backing up this 4 terabyte server. We were able to back it up in 16 hours. We then replicated it to a daughter unit, took that into the cloud. We did snapshots, which at that point took between 10 to 15 minutes, and then a further 20 minutes to get it up into the cloud. They now had viable recovery points and a potential solution to restore a full 4 terabyte server in the cloud and be up and running within maybe a day if it was a complete outage. So they went from having a solution that was basically pointless on paper, pointless in practice, not even worth changing the tapes for, to a solution that they could go to their management and actually say, you know what, I can recover this if it was really down. So it's quite a bit of effort up front, and it took quite a bit of analysis to actually see what they needed, but long term, it works out well. And they actually have approximately 12 terabytes of recovery points in the cloud that they can go to at any point. They can say, hey, I want to take this server, I want a full restore of maybe a 30 gig machine. It recovers in about 45 minutes. And it's a pretty slick solution. I know I covered quite a bit of information. I'm going to have Chad here fit up some of the points.
I want to recap a couple big points here. 46 servers, 9 terabytes, all in the cloud, replicating on a 10 meg connection. These are real numbers, right? These are not unreasonable. We're not saying they have a fiber line running straight to the cloud site. These are numbers that you will see in your environments, extremely achievable. So and we took a solution that was not working, put it in the cloud, where most of us would say, well, that will never work to move 9 terabytes of data, and it's up. It runs smoothly, efficiently, frequently, and now we're not just doing one every 125 hours, we're getting snapshots every 2 to 4 because of the way the software works. Yes, sir? 5 minutes, thank you. So, I don't want to get into a whole bunch more case studies. I have them. If you would like to talk about them or different options and different things, please come see me. I'll be out here all day, or booth number 13. So quick summary, recapping this whole thing. Develop your goals, assess your backups. Important. These are all the really important steps. Develop your goals, assess your backups, define your requirements. Figure out which areas are not working for you currently and how you want to fix them. Review the solutions that make sense to you and pursue those. Choose a vendor that fits you best. Test the solution again, and then create a scope of work. Don't not do this one. Creating a scope of work is really important because it's going to allow you to clearly define everything you're trying to do. A lot of times, people will say, okay, well, we're going to do this, and they jump right into it, and they forgot the 33 other things, and then creating a scope will help you avoid this. That's important. Utilize a vendor to help move your data. The initial seed, getting that big bulk of data up there first. Getting beyond that will make the rest of your cloud transition much more enjoyable. And then monitor your backup. Don't put it in place and walk away and think that it works because it's in the cloud. Monitor, monitor, monitor. Your responsibility for that never goes away. For more information, definitely info at MHL. Just let us know. We'll be here as well. We have another presentation actually at 1:45, which is Matt will be giving the benefits of hybrid storage. He's probably far more entertaining than I am, so if you want to come see that one.
No guarantees.
But with that, I'm going to open it up for some questions, and thank everybody for coming and listening. I know it's a lot of information, and planning a project like this can be overwhelming, but it's completely doable. So, yes, sir.
In your case study, you mentioned was a managed service provider used for the cloud there, or how was that handled?
Yes.
So you partnered with a managed?
We are. I can't. I'm not selling anything here, right? I need to explain to you how the technology works. If you're curious about it, definitely feel free to come see us. But yes, they are using managed service provider. So yes, ma'am.
Do you recommend redundant internet?
Do I? Yes. Leveraging the right equipment. Yes, I do. Also keeping in mind that your secondary internet probably isn't going to be as fast as your primary. And if you are having issues with backup and internet, you might be experiencing a bigger problem. Your site might be down, but the backup internet, yes, it's important. Or having a dedicated line. Some people do that as well, just for their cloud replication. I don't think that's completely necessary. In fact, I know it's not necessary. Most people don't, but it's an option for sure if you don't want to worry about it. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you guys again. Appreciate it, and come visit me out at the booth, and we can talk some more if you want to talk about anything else. Thank you.
Appreciate it.